All those people usually log in.
Sure.
Gary, Dave, George.
They will all show up, in theory, here in person.
Okay.
We usually have two faithful people that will join the meeting via hybrid.
Okay. Looks like the share button will work from this end.
It will.
Yeah, there we go.
If your board members aren't here, do they have to notice where they are doing the meeting from? That was a big thing during like COVID and things like that.
Yes.
They have to like tell the public.
And they have to show their faces wherever they are. They have to, yeah. That's, I don't know if that's specific to having the meeting or voting. I'm still figuring out, there's so many rules and codes.
Yeah, we dealt with that a few times with plans for the meetings where there was so many people.
I'm just gonna try and find it.
Virtually,
Sound good?
we had to turn everybody's camera.
Because it's not a camera. Out, this will be looking at us.
So there was some very.
Did you hear it, Carl? When-
We wanted to speak.
Cameras were on. Whoever's talking.
Okay.
Swivels to them. No way.
That was a challenge.
Everything is just unavailable.
So it let me share from this end, but it didn't show up.
I think he has to accept.
Yeah, I have to get into the meeting. It's all just weird, very delayed. Should have liked this. Oh, you know what? I can live in this.
So it was again? What's your name again?
Right.
Ryan. Okay. Have you seen the project report we went over with Justin yet?
The Hyman needs
Not that one.
are the post project.
Our post project.
Yeah, yep, we've, as long as that's the report, I'm thinking, yeah, we looked at it.
Yeah, we added some information to it. And
Okay.
we kind of added some information, because I know there's assessment stuff going on and you guys are in project management, role. But, really from a standpoint of like how our service has been implemented with assessments and repair work in other cities.
Mhm.
And, we added some case study to that,
Yeah,
just to kind of give it, some context.
good.
You're right. That's the exact that.
Yeah.
That follows the.
There we go.
I told you, I know exactly what I'm doing.
Hey man, how's my hair look?
Okay, all right, so let's join and let's see if I get.
I hit my mic. Hit your mic.
Is it?
Test.
Should be happy.
God, I just forgot Justin.
Good evening, everyone. This is Gary Fernhagen. I'm chairperson for the City of Hudson Public Works Board. And I'm calling our meeting to order. Do I have a motion? Any seconds? Second, cool, great. Okay. So, I don't believe yes.
We can't hear you.
How about
There's
now?
no. Perfect.
Thank you, Linda.
Linda, can you hear me? Great, okay. So, Dave Marson, one of the members of the board, will not be here. He's, tied down with work tonight. He was going to be presenting, still needs more time to be able to present to us his database model, which, will be the beginning of our, collecting the data required for, home assessment in terms of the sidewalk, initiative. So we're gonna move right into, new business. And, we're going to, first, let's start off with a report from Justin as terms of what's going on in general with the sidewalks.
Okay, so Precision Safe Sidewalks is here with us. They did complete all of the curb ramps as highlighted by the DOJ that needed to be addressed. The DOJ did respond, and although they are overall pleased with our effort, they did say, although most of them appear less unsafe, there were a couple things that they highlighted. One is that it appears that some curb ramps, some of them, there is a change in the level between the bottom of the curb ramp and the street. Some of the diagonal curb ramps don't have a space at least 48 inches long beyond the bottom of the curb ramp that is within the marked crosswalk. The curb ramp at Third and Warren, shown in one of the photos, is not wholly within the marked crosswalk. Some of the curb ramp cross slopes appeared to be too steep. And finally, the slope of a curb ramp flared side is measured perpendicular to the curb ramp. We did respond to the DOJ to get clarification, and it could be a matter of how the photos were taken. It's tough. I sent a couple different versions of photos at their request. I think it's going to be a matter of them coming in person to look at the work, because some of these can be debunked, by looking at them in person. Some of them, there is some credence to what she mentioned. Crawford and Associates and I, Ryan Laux and I, did walk around and look at each of these highlighted statements that she did offer up. And I'm sure Ryan will talk about that at some point tonight. But, overall, pleased. I know that Elise, our contact with the DOJ is away till November 4th. The mayor has reached out to her, just so we can get clear instruction if we're not giving her something that she's looking for. So that's where we're at with the curb ramp, project. As far as, I'm sure you're gonna ask me what's going on with the DRI project first.
I think we should cover it. You know, I see what's going on down there and it's, looks good.
Yeah, so we just had our meeting. This is, the DRI project, which covers front to second. We met with Creighton Manning on yesterday, 2 days. I'm sorry, we met yesterday. Let's see. The sidewalk scoring, they have been given, direction to proceed with the saw cut flag pattern and no stamped concrete. They have poured the concrete at First and Warren. I think we were at that point last meeting. So that is done. There was an issue that happened after they poured the concrete at First and Warren. Some kids got into it and wrote their names and various other things. So they had to go back and redo it. They redid it, and apparently there's still someone's name at the corner, nearest Sam's Market on that side of the street. Overall, they look great. I saw that the warning strips, what's the technical term for that?
The tactile warning strip.
Yes, they've been put down. I don't know if that's the overall official stamp of approval, because once those go down, it's as if we've approved the, concrete pour, but, that is technically finished, the First and Warren.
I'd like to go on the record that my initials are not in that.
Nor are mine,
I
to
asked,
my knowledge.
I asked one of the workers if I could, and he did not find it funny, because that was the morning that all of the names were crossed in there, you know, come on. It's gonna happen.
We did tell them, Keller is the company that's pouring the concrete, and Louisi, is the contractor who subcontracted, Keller. That basically they are responsible for safeguarding that area after they pour. Whether they have somebody standing there until it dries, but we expect a pristine finished product, so. Or put some sort of barrier around it, you know, once they pour it, but, it will happen again, you know, once they start pouring down at First or on Front, I should
Probably
say.
not as much because the market's there. You know, it's the corner store, everyone comes, it's a congregation spot. I know it well because it's like 3 buildings from my home,
Yeah,
so,
so they are aware that once they pour, they, you know, it's up to them to, you know, protect that area until it dries.
Okay.
So, going forward, in the next 2 weeks, they plan on, doing the curbs on Front Street and drainage on Front Street. Second and Warren won't get attention until springtime, around March, they said. And I believe that is the crux of that project. That's where we're at right now.
great. I just want to reinforce the issue that both the DRI and even the work that Precision has done is not under the purview of this board. But since it's part of the overall sidewalk revitalization, I think it's important that we just touch on it and report on it as we can.
Right,
So,
because now we're the sidewalk guys.
I'm sorry, where's
Now
the
we're-
sidewalk?
Now we're the sidewalk guys, we gotta be able to answer anything sidewalk related. I
That's exactly right. Okay, cool. Anything else?
think that's it.
Great. Just my 2 cents is, and you know, I view what the DOJ came up with, it's a bug list, you know? Any large project, you're gonna end up with bugs that need to be addressed. But I wouldn't touch it until they come and in fact say, yes, it needs to be done. Unless Crawford comes to us and says, listen, there's a few here that absolutely need to be, and we should just go ahead and take care of that and figure out how do we engage, Precision on that work, et cetera.
Oh, I should also say, so now that we've got the curb ramp portion of the DOJ consent order complete, now
On
we're
Warren Street.
on Warren Street, now we're entering the other phase of what they highlighted, which is taking care of curb ramps at municipal locations. So we are on Monday beginning the work at Third and Cherry, which is, by the youth department. And I'm sure Ryan will speak to that as well once he starts talking. And we do have other highlighted areas that we're gonna, as a board, have to prioritize and figure out a game plan, what's next in tackling all the municipal locations that they highlighted.
Very good.
And that's really it now.
Okay.
From me.
So with that said, Ryan, can you give us an update as to the project to date and where we are at today and how are you recommending we move forward?
Certainly. So, just as a kind of a summary, so we started the process with the City of Hudson's Public Works Board by looking at the existing information from the Hyman Hayes report, as well as the Department of Justice's highlighted areas, that were spotlighted in their findings. And from that, we started to talk with this board and the committee and the city itself, trying to identify things that are in your priorities. So the Hyman Hayes report was done in 2021. So as a first step, we wanted to go out and just see if anything's changed. Potentially someone had done improvements on an intersection. So we have done that process so far. And we're pretty much done with that. The only thing I guess we didn't go through is go through and check the work that was done by Precision to some extent, other than what Justin and I had done a few days ago, which we'll get into that in a little bit. But part of our scope of work also included the taxation and starting to set some of that work up, as well as we started, some Excel sheets and things like that, tracking all the properties. There's some that are exempt properties and another thing. So we've had a good log going of that information. And I guess when I get a chance to speak with the rest of the board, and we can figure out the best path for what Crawford and Associates can help out with that formula and things like that. I think we've already kind of discussed it. We're at a point now where it's a lot of, looking at the data and just compiling everything. And at the end of the day, we get your product, that would be your first draft. As we started the process after our first few meetings with the group and things like that, it was apparent that the Department of Justice wanted to see progress in the near term, especially on things that could be done quickly. I know that's partly where Precision comes in with the work on Warren Street. Crawford and Associates didn't have a large part to do with that. I mean, it's been discussed and we understand their needs and methods, and we understand that the DPW took that work on. So when we understood that the Department of Public Works was working with Precision, we identified a few areas that could be done on a smaller scale project, an RFP level project, to show progress. So that's how we got to the point we are with Third and Cherry, as well as Union and Seventh. So for the work on Third and Cherry, we prepared a RFP document. So we provided that to, I think it was 5 contractors, solicited 2. I think we received responses from 3, Peter Louisi and Sons, H. Cal Russo and Sons, and TJR Excavation. We provided that summary to the board. And I believe it was a few meetings, I don't think it was the last meeting, maybe 2 meetings ago, that was awarded to TJR. So they should begin work Monday morning, apparently without something crazy going on over the weekend. And that work should take about a week. And they're going to be replacing the curb ramps at the 4 corners of the intersections of Third and Cherry. We did receive the results for the Union and 7th Street work as well. We provided that summary to the Public Works Board, and it was we did solicit 2 additional contractors. We actually got less of a response, with the reasons mostly being to the fact that the city wanted the work done this year. A lot of contractors are getting close to the end of their ability to do concrete and asphalt work this year. We had two contractors respond. One was Frank Fosberg and Sons, and the other again was Peter Weezy. And I have the contract from Frank Fosberg and Sons tonight, if the board would like to accept that. They were the lowest responsible bidder of the project. I understand the process has to continue on to the common council, so I'm not sure exactly how that process will go, and we don't have a full board tonight to vote, so we can go forward with that as well. Going towards the comments that Justin brought up earlier about the Department of Justice areas, we went out there and we looked at the work that Precision completed, and we feel that what they had done, what their contract was for. There were some areas that Justin and I talked about potentially utilizing maybe the DPW to take on some of the items that aren't part of what Precision does. There's some areas there where, it could have to do with the asphalt being, repaired in front of the curb ramps to alleviate the lip that the DOJ brings up in their comment letter. So I think there's a number of things we could look at in that respect, as well as, Justin and I wanted to make sure we were understanding the comments and understanding how the particular measurements are taken, so that if there's a better photo to be taken to show that, it could be done in the future to hopefully alleviate the future comments from the Department of Justice. But again, I agree, there's probably some punch list kind of, could you do this a little bit better in the future? And just everyone can understand that. So moving to the future now, I think the next step that Crawford and Associates would recommend to the board here is taking on a larger scale project to encompass the work of 5th Street, 6th Street, and 7th Street if possible. We had some conversations with Rob Perry, the DPW superintendent, and he informed us of the work that's gonna be taking place on Columbia Street. And he recommended avoiding any of those curb ramps or intersections now, because the work on Columbia Street more than likely is gonna interfere with it. So what we're gonna propose, and we can discuss this further, is that the Public Works Board would authorize Crawford and Associates to prepare design documents and construction bid documents for a project scope on 5th Street. And the way we work with a lot of other municipalities is we take a scope of work that we feel the municipality could take on within their funding amount. And then we also include alternates for additional work, so that if the base contract scope allows it, you can add in additional pieces to use the funding you have available and not go over your funding. So our thought was to take 5th Street because it has the most work to be done on. Start with that as your base contract, and then add in the pieces on 6th Street and 7th Street as alternates. And the way that would come in as a bid is you'd be able to take the base contract and then add in any of the alternates to allow for pretty much a menu style project that, as long as the funding is there, you could do it all. If the funding isn't there, you could always say, okay, we're not gonna award those pieces, but you now have a price that you could put in as a budgetary number for the next round of projects to be done, which would hopefully encompass those pieces. Part of what we haven't done yet, which is part of what we would do as part of that, the future design, would be look to see if there are any of those curb ramps that Precision could assist with, if there's pieces of those that would benefit their type of work rather than full replacement and construction, and those means and methods, which could, value engineer some things there. But that would be part of the future project that we're hoping to propose to the city or to this board and council as well, to help the project move forward. So I think the next kind of steps here are finishing up our current scope of work, which I think we'll talk about more with what CNA can provide for the construction side of the 3rd and Cherry and Union and 7th projects, as well as assisting with anything more in that taxation formula and documentation for that. And then the future project would be the larger 5th, 6th, and 7th. And being that would have to be publicly bid due to the scope of work that involved price-wise, that would have to be full public bid documents, notices and things like that. So we'll prepare a separate amended contract for that scope of work. And depending on the city's award, we would likely provide a separate contract for any CA work, because unless we know exactly what you're gonna award, we won't know that until pricing comes in. Our price could vary on the CA work. We could give it a maximum if the city went with everything, and if that's easier, then we could approach that as well. But we're at a good point now. I think we have 2 projects that hopefully can be done this year. And then the 5th, 6th, and 7th, we would propose to have that work bid in the winter, fall, winter time this year, to be able to begin work beginning of next year, beginning of the construction season.
Brian, what was the low bid on Union and Seventh?
$25,250.
Just, what if we waited until next year? Would that be a lot cheaper?
I guess, would you expect, I guess, so would it be cheaper to wait to do that project until next year for the hope more bidders provide pricing? It may, you could also run the risk that the price of the materials change, the price of fuels change. You know, you have a tangible number now. Do I think that number would change higher? I think it would go down a lot, probably not. It may be the same number you get next year. You know, the contractor that gave their price, Frank Bosberg and Sons, they could not bid the next round too, and then you're at the next highest price.
And
Which,
if my memory serves me correctly, there was 2 bids and the other bidder was more than double
correct.
what Frank Fosberg was.
Just probably saying they don't wanna take the work on.
More than what, there's a few things. I know Louisiana's doing a lot of work in the city, so they're very busy, so I think it's, there could be a lot of pieces. They wanna put a number to it, maybe that is their number too.
Yeah.
Everybody has their number for a project, and they're working in the city, so they have a number in mind, and that's what they feel they could do. Also, there's sometimes that thought of, well, I'm gonna put a number in and we'll see where it goes, so.
Is 25K a good number? In CNA's,
In my understanding of the scope of work for that project, it seems reasonable, yes. There's a section of sidewalk that needs to be installed, and then there's a curb ramp on each side of, Union that would be installed under that. So, and I think you have about 30 foot of sidewalk and 2 curb ramps to be done for $25,000. The price for the work on Third and Cherry involves 4 curb ramps, and that price is around $25,000 as well. So there's different pieces to each of the scopes, even though the prices are relatively similar. But I would say they're both reasonable prices for the work, yes.
Thank you. So, we're still very much focusing on DOJ's list.
Correct.
And we're still there for the foreseeable future. And then after that, we really do have to look at the city as a total and then figure out how we want to prioritize that work.
Yep.
Okay, I need to keep that in my mind as well. Okay. So yeah, you have a contract that you can provide it to us. Obviously, as a board, we can't vote tonight on it, and we do, although, you know, we can pull that off and yet get it to the common council at some point, so I'll accept that. And then you'll be working on you were referring to as an addendum to the agreement that we have in place?
Yes. But we were gonna do, our approach was to provide 2 contract amendments or addendums. The first contract addendum would be so when we started our original scope with this board, it was more of a, you know, preliminary, you know, identify what we can and go from, and it kind of changed, which, you know, we weren't preparing bid documents under that scope. However, based on the direction that the Department of Justice wanted, we've modified what we were doing. So we were gonna provide an amendment to finish out what we were planning to do under the initial project, as well as the management of the 2 RFPs as one piece. And then the next amendment for the contract would be for the bid document preparation of 5th, 6th, and 7th, along with the bidding process of that as a separate piece. And then once we finish that, we can progress with whatever the next scope for this board in the city would be. So.
Okay, fair enough. Anything else we should know?
I think everything has been going well. I think that there are some things that, I do think prioritizing is gonna be very important for the city. And prioritizing, it may sometimes seem difficult from a big picture thing. You know, it's looking at a lot of these intersections where, there could be a fix that's cheap, but that may not be the long-term fix. Sometimes there's gonna be some of those balances as well, where maybe, again, going to that larger project. if we were to get that bid package in and it's a big number, you know, we can start small, and that's our preference here, is to try to give the city projects they can afford and not get into a position where you can't afford to fix anything because you don't have any money anymore. So we want to make sure we're mindful of that, as well as, I know we've worked with a lot of different organizations on grants. I mean, Crawford and Associates as a company, we have assisted many municipalities with grant opportunities and winning grants. A lot have to do with sidewalks, ADA, crosswalks and things like that. So I definitely would say we would be willing, and we would hope the city would want some, to make sure they're on the lookout for any type of grant funding that could be available. I remember last year that there was an opportunity, but they would have been submitted prior to Crawford and Associates beginning work with the city. But we are looking at all those possibilities as well to help find some additional funds for the city.
That was a feature that you brought up when you were first presenting to us that was very attractive to us. So yes, we, you know, to just reiterate, you know, we need that help.
Yep, absolutely.
And we're willing to pay for it. Okay, good. Any questions? Gentlemen, it's your floor.
Sounds great, great.
Please introduce yourselves and tell us what you've done for us so far and what you can do moving forward.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm Aaron Hester with Precision Safe Sidewalks. I'm a senior VP and have the opportunity to work with municipalities really across the eastern seaboard with Precision. Been around for about 16 years, and here with Cole Agnew. He covers the state of New York for us from a business development, project management standpoint. And, you know, we appreciate having the opportunity to, you know, really to be here, number one, and be a part of, you know, Hudson's value engineered solution to addressing some of these ADA, you know, challenges that we're familiar with, you know, across a lot of municipal entities. So what we did bring in is a kind of a short recap of our patented technology and process, and of what we did for Hudson, the savings that it did provide. And, you know, since CA is here and Ryan is here too, I thought it might be good to talk a little bit about how our services have been implemented across the state for a lot of major municipalities. We brought in just some very brief case study information. Maybe those details we could, you know, could be discussed further, how our services were implemented there, you know, across those cities to help with ADA compliance, ADA transition plans. And, you know, this is, I think like CA noted, it's a phased approach, and progress and prioritization is a big thing, and money's always an issue, you know, how to spread the dollars. So we do have some recap if we could share that.
Yep.
Right, great. Okay, so there we go, we can see everything. So back in August and September, we had the opportunity to make curb ramp repairs, like the picture upper right, and we utilized a process and equipment that's received 7 patents from the United States Patent Trademark Office. And we essentially used the process to make horizontal cuts to remove concrete, whether it's a vertical height displacement or some specialty repairs like we did at the curb ramps. We wrapped that up in September, and we just summarized some project deliverables. We removed vertical height displacements on the ramps on Warren Street, 1/4 inch up to about 2.5 inches maximum. There were 18 ramps identified in total, and 95% of those, 17 of the ramps, we were able to mitigate some differential to improve accessibility. And one of those, you know, we did go ahead and recommend that be replaced. During the project, one of the things, you know, our customers really appreciate is the green savings, in addition to the raw dollar savings. You know, we track how many tons of concrete don't go into the landfill and get repoured with EPA calculators, gallons of fossil fuels and CO2 emissions that are saved using our process. because it is a greener approach. And we've just, summarized here, all in all, over about 1,300 square feet were addressed in the process for these ramps. And all the tracking, which has been very useful for other municipalities, was tracked in, it was geolocated. We have lat long for everything we repaired, square footage, and there's before and after pictures, which is really helpful for an auditable purpose, and even explaining the work that was done and tracked over a time period. So that's available, and then we do have a summary annual report which we will deliver, Justin, just to show how we calculated those EPA savings using those calculators. And just to mention, the ramps, there were certain specifications that we achieved during the process. We repaired 2 specifications, which we outlined with DPW and, with Justin, basically to achieve the goals for those ramps. And every repair met those specifications. If there are some things that might need to be looked at later, if we can help with, please let us know. All the repairs really exceed the standards of OSHA slip resistance, like you'll find on the brush finish of concrete that's replaced. And we, recycled all the debris, and of course, everything's auditable. So we just brought in a few examples of the work, and this is before and after. And I think since then, the detectable warnings have been placed back on those ramp areas, which was outside of our scope. And then again, we've got a record of that Warren and Fourth location that we really recommended be replaced. Wasn't a good candidate for our process. So all in all, our project to make repairs at these 17 locations, less than 9 days to make all those repairs. I'm not sure, how long it took to re-pour curb ramps and get the writing out, but it may have been longer than 9 days, on those ramps. We're real proud of, the speed that we work through like a central business district. Probably the most, exciting thing, and one of the reasons I think Hudson reached out to us was the savings, the documented savings. I think each one of those ramp locations would have taken probably in excess of $5,700 a location to make alterations to. And we did that for a fraction of the cost. I think the documented savings that we have calculated is it's almost $68,000 that we saved the city just on those 17 locations. So one of the additional things, during the project, it's always really good to be safe. We logged 30 more safety hours and no injuries. That's technicians, inspectors, managers, and also pedestrians. And we have a pretty much flawless safety record in that. We just added to that. That's very important to us. We got final project deliverables of what we delivered, for Hudson, and can provide this report. And so kind of, keeping in line with CA's scope of services and where Hudson is heading in the future, Colt and I wanted to talk a little bit about, while we made repairs on these ramps, really our customers that we work with see the greatest benefit utilizing the process on the sidewalks versus replacing them. And a lot of sidewalks in these identified streets and throughout the city, they are extremely good candidates for the service on the sidewalk side for vertical height displacement. So we just brought in, and I'll have Colt go through some of this information. We brought in the types of repairs we can make, and how the process can be used to make these repairs, and also some case study information, just how we've implemented programs in current scope of services working with and without engineering firms involved, and how they've gone about that, and just the results to date, just from a high level. And so, Colt, I'll let you speak to some of these repairs.
Thank you, I appreciate it. So yeah, I just really quickly, as Aaron mentioned, I did want to walk you through some of the other types of repairs we make specifically on sidewalks and some other, areas. So just to kind of walk you through very quickly our precision repair process, each, hazard is repaired at the customer slope requirements. Every repair meets or exceeds, just like the ramps, OSHA slip resistant standards. Every hazard is removed edge to edge, the debris is cleared, and we do just like the ramp repairs, supply inaudible report. Are you gonna click them?
Yeah, yeah, so I'll help you out here, Cole.
I didn't know.
Cole's
Yeah.
like, get with it.
So here are two of kind of those examples I was mentioning. The one on the left, I wanted to point out, that's probably only a 1/4 inch vertical height displacement, just meaning, heaving essentially. So I like pointing that one out because you can see that we don't damage the adjacent panel. Our process is able to make the edge to edge finish, like I mentioned, without damaging that, and just kind of making that fine, kind of line there. The image on the right, that's exact same example. It's just a bigger hazard. That's probably about 1.5 inches. One thing I did want to point out is the triangular cut and finish there. You can see behind that. That's just so the slope is even throughout the panel. So yeah, you can touch on that.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so we did ramps, for the city of Hudson. We brought in another example of kind of a complex repair. The one on the left really is on a raised, vaulted area. You'll notice the diamond shape to it. The diamond shape really is indicative of different height differential across that entire landing area. So what I wanted to point out is that our equipment and our technicians have the ability to repair at any slope and based on different differentials, across the front of the pedestrian access route. So this one, the height was higher in the middle and then it tapered down to 0 differential on both sides. So you see a diamond shape, and the diamond shape there is really allows there to be a uniform slope across that transition area. And that uniform slope is important to maintain. You don't want it steeper on one side than you do the other. And so that's hence precision. And we make the proper calculations to make sure that we deliver that where it's possible. Yeah. I'll get it back to you, Phil.
Yeah, we also cut curbs as well, just, in instances where it might be at a point of egress where someone might be, walking into a parking lot into their vehicle or whatnot, we can cut those as well. So we did bring in just a few examples of kind of how some municipalities in New York State are kind of implementing, our sidewalk softening process into their sidewalk programs. One of them is the town of Greece. This is just west of Rochester. I mean, it's pretty much in Rochester. We've been working with them for 4 or 5 years. I think this is the 5th year we've done repairs with them. In total, we've repaired after this year about 4,000 repairs affecting over 100,000 square feet of sidewalk. And we're kind of just, actually, I'll wait for the next slide to get a little more detail there. So with the town of Greece, they're sending us we're repairing in I guess 2 different ways. One, they're sending us work order locations like homeowner complaints. They might call in, they have some sidewalk heaving issues. They'll, hand that off to us and we're able to repair those where, needed. And that's similar to the ramp repairs. We're providing demolition replacement data on the location where we can't. We also work out of zones in the town of Greece as well. I think this year we've been specifically working in zone 608. I don't think we need to go back and explain that more, but yeah, so in total, just over probably 4,000 repairs after this year. And same thing, we do track green savings as well. So just another high level as well. Again, I just want to mention 2024 is not in here. I do want to point out every year since we started working with them, they have increased their PO. You'll see that repairs completed increased every year. The repair square footage. One thing this slide actually does not point out is we saved the town of Greece actually $1.2 million roughly versus demolition replacement over the last 4 years we've been working with them. So just another program I wanted to point out was this is a Buffalo area municipality. It's just north. We've been working on it for 2 years now. This will be the 3rd year we've completed some work with them. Same thing. They're actually the way they collect their data is through homeowner complaints as well. They'll call in, cite a complaint about some sidewalk, a tripping hazard. They'll pass that on to us, and we'll be able to get out there and repair what we can and let them know what we can't. The last 2 years, we've done, just in the last 2 years, 928 repairs affecting 23,000 square feet of sidewalk.
Now, what happens if a specific issue requires something beyond you guys?
So we just track that as well. On the front end of the survey, we will actually get, is that actually included here? I don't believe it is. So you'll get, actually, we could probably show it right here with the program tracking. So you'll get kind of metadata that shows you both before and after pictures of the repairs, addresses, square footage and things like that. And you'll also get that same thing with the mouse and replacement data. So you'll get, just, if you're familiar with ArcGIS, pretty much just a link that you'll be able to open up all that stuff, pull that data and see exactly what we were not able to repair.
So they, by default, they turn to you and then you decide whether it's beyond your scope.
Yes, yes.
We do work with them. Every municipality has some slight differences as to tolerance for what they want replaced.
Yeah.
And what they want to utilize a service for.
Yeah.
It varies, but generally, if you have a stable panel, it's a 4-inch pour, and you have a height differential that's less than 2.5 inches, we can mitigate it with the process. And anything that's above 2.5 inches, or the panel is crushed or spalling, it just needs to be replaced. We log it, we record square footage, we provide it in an attribute table, export it. CA, for example, could take that and then include it in a bid document and get it replaced. And typically, we work through these areas, provide that report after we make the repairs, and then the replacement is done right after. So that way, you're stretching the funding as much as possible. You're getting, more streets and sidewalks mitigated, and everyone pretty much, knows the methodology too and has input into it.
If it'll benefit you guys, we can actually show you the post-project review we just did for the city of Albany. We can kind of show you how exactly we handled that situation where we found those and show you exactly what we kind of gave them, if that would help.
No, that's okay.
Okay.
Now so this is a different approach and I see some value to it is, let's see if the cheaper guys can do it, if not, then we turn over. But, it's, not that I'm interested in doing that. Because I like having a project manager, protecting us. But is that more, might that be a reflection of where that city is at in terms of, is it more of a maintenance to keep ADA? Are they there yet? I mean, it seems like we have a whole lot of work to do. And
It's consistent. Your situation in Hudson is consistent with every other municipality we work with. There's never enough funding to fix everything. And they are in a position where they do want to stretch funding, keep things as compliant as possible, replace and redesign what's necessary. And, so it's, we manage these programs, really all over the country through affiliate offices. Just on the Eastern Seaboard, we work with over 550 municipalities and DOTs that run these programs. Some of these municipal entities we work with for 10 and 15 years, managing their programs. Certainly wouldn't want to, it's important to have a company like CA or an engineer involved for, things that, municipalities can't handle. They don't have the staff or the resources to handle. Those needs are very important. It's not replacing, those needs, but like, we're talking about the DOJ a little bit here. Our company's been working with the, DDOT, District Department of Transportation, for over a decade, administering these programs with this service, and very pleased with it. We work with some of the largest counties, across the country. Fairfax County, Virginia is a good example, close by DC. And, Colt mentioned Albany. We just wrapped up implementation first year with them. They're really pleased and double funding. Similar situation to, you're trying to tackle on Hudson, spreading the funding, getting as much, mitigated as you can as part of the program. And sometimes there's multiple partners involved, different scopes, but we've seen a lot of them over the years. So does that answer your question?
Yeah, I haven't even formulated the question all that well, I think, you know, but, no, yeah, I see what you're saying. So your headquarters is out in Buffalo?
We do work all throughout the state. It
So it doesn't matter
completely
where you
ignore
are.
run from,
And
yeah, that's.
the equipment that you're using here in the city, where is that typically stored?
We have an operations office that's just over the line from Westchester County, White Plains. And, they, mobilize from there. And we typically cover operations halfway across the state. Anything in Hudson Valley will mobilize out of there, but again, all our pricing is, it's all bundled in there, all your mode fees, so, yeah.
Okay. Do you guys have any questions?
Here to answer any questions.
We did have one more thing we just wanted to mention. We brought in, you know, just this year, I think Colt wanted to kind
Yeah,
of
just-
summarize the.
Yeah, Yeah, I won't spend too much time on all these, just, you know, some of the ones close to you, like I mentioned, you know, we just doubled the PO with the city of Albany this year. We just got started actually next week, actually, with the town of Bedford, Village of Larchmont, you know, Rick, we've done work with them for the last, I think, 3 years, Terrytown as well. Orangetown Highway Department, we've been working with them for, I think, 4 years as well. They're sending a PO to us literally, I believe, next week too, so, yeah, and some of the other ones are a little bit more west, but, yeah.
Yeah, Rochester, Greece, Binghamton, Brockport, North Tonawanda. They're all on here, and that's not all inclusive.
Yeah.
Do you have a shutdown season? I mean.
As long as there's not a foot of sidewalks on the, well, foot of sidewalks, foot of snow, foot of snow on the sidewalks, we're good to cut usually, yeah.
Yeah, Albany asked us that too, when they re-upped, you know, what we could do, and as long as it's clear and melted, or we can move it, it's good, but. You know, one of the reasons we brought all this in is to really, you know, really hopefully find a way to, you know, implement or integrate with current plans and long-term plans with, you know, the partners you have already. And, you know, hopefully provide some value, not only to the ramps, but also to the sidewalk process. Because, you know, it's a big process, and, you know, prioritizing all of this it's a tough task for really well-staffed departments. And, so, it's all we do. That's all we focus on.
Another thing, just the very last thing, part of the service as well is just the initial survey and assessment, you know, that's pretty much part of the service. Would it benefit you to kind of see one of those? I know you had a question about, you know, what it looks like when we do find demolition replacement, stuff, and I know just one of those proposals, because it is, you know, pretty much free. You know, if you guys ever did have just a list to send us, we can just show you what that would look like if we came out and assessed that if you want.
A list of
Yeah, just like
issues, sidewalks.
yeah,
that
just
need
pretty
to
much
be-
like a proposal that you would get from us had you send us, say, just a list of locations that are having issues, just so you can kind of see how that's handled. I should know if that'll benefit you, just while we're here.
To me, it doesn't seem like it would take a whole lot of diversion or energy to come up with, you know, a whole bunch of sidewalks
It's
that could use that.
probably pretty easy, honestly.
I mean, I could take an hour out and, you know,
Yeah.
probably give you a week's worth of work.
Exactly,
You know?
I agree with that in the thought of showing progress. However, I will say there are probably, it's gonna come into a position of, and I don't know how the city and the board look at the challenge is gonna be, there's gonna be very bad spots in the city.
Right.
And there's gonna be spots that are, a few, quarter inches
Yeah.
or so.
Right.
And is the money well spent fixing the really bad spots that maybe their techniques can't help with? Or is it try to do as much with the money you have, which means we're gonna start on some small pieces and work as much through the city? So I think there's gonna be a balancing act there. And I think following with the Department of Justice's work areas, you know, if we're working through the curb ramps they've identified now, access to the municipal buildings is kind of what they're focusing on. I would agree there are a lot of areas that their means and methods would be very useful for. And I think, I remember Justin and I were over on Third and Cherry. There's a few areas there where you see now changing elevations that, you know, their services could be very helpful for. The only part that I think is gonna be difficult for them is gonna be you're probably not gonna show up to fix one spot.
Right.
It's gonna be a sizable project, which, again, as long as the funds are all there and you can work through the priorities, and I think that's a great tool to have, especially on some of the smaller pieces that are very easily achieved in a day's worth of work. And, it keeps you guys here for important pieces, and I'll use the example of, I think it's Sixth and State, by that church, corner next to DMV, or that's Sixth or Fifth?
Fifth in front of Fourth, where the home store is, and then the church is on the other side.
It's the municipal, it's like the parking lot across from the church, which is next to DMV and the county buildings. All I know is the sidewalks along, is that Columbia? It might be Columbia. No, it's State Street. Sidewalks there are destroyed beyond repair, like they need to be replaced.
Right.
So if the city's looking for a, a pace or replacement project, that is gonna be one. So and that's where money's gonna have to be available for that. So, it's gonna be a challenge, I think, of balancing funds to find the best use of Precision's methods.
Okay. Yeah, I think it makes sense, and you're right, it needs to be a balancing act. Personally, I don't know if, I'm personally not too concerned anymore with satisfying the DOJ, because I think we've demonstrated a lot of work. And we're not gonna let up on the pedal, but, we're doing the work, and they seem to be somewhat, they're picking on this and that, and we'll work through that, right? But, I'm more concerned with now putting a plan together that's the most efficient and effective for the city to get the work done, or to get to that point where it's maintenance, we've taken care of all the municipalities, and, we're looking at the entire cityscape, is that what they're calling it, streetscape?
Streetscape.
Okay, this is good. You guys did great work, you made a good argument, you're saving us a lot of money. And it seems to make sense to all of us that where we can, we use you on the sidewalks as well. As long as you come in with a good price.
We always have at least price.
I'm good with you. Yeah. Okay.
I have, just another question, thinking towards the future with like the grant funding. Have you guys worked on any projects that have been federally funded, like through
Many.
grants?
Man,
And there's, okay,
all over the country, yeah. It's actually, grant writing process and going after these funds. One of the things that has kind of helped, these grant applications kind of get a bump is, integration of our services, because you can show economic savings, you can show green savings, and those grants usually, with things like that in there, get some preference and some attention. So bundling that, even if it's like, say you've got 80% replacement, that's a priority. Bundling some portion of it, like you mentioned some of these streets, I don't remember what they were, like, it was Fifth, Sixth, and Seventh. Like if you went through and looked at Fifth, Sixth, and Seventh and said, well, 30% of these deficiencies could be mitigated with this, here's a resulting savings, and then it's bundled with this other batch of work, it can get prioritized and a lot of attention. And so, we work in many facets like that.
yeah, I guess that was a big thought of, we talked about this internally, is some grant opportunities are gonna come with what they call a match. So there's gonna be times where like the city themselves are gonna have to put funds into it. Now, if there was an entire street that could be worked on, so these are random numbers, if it was a $100,000 grant, have an 80-20, we'll give you 80, you gotta put the 20% in. If we could utilize, Precision to do some of those other pieces in that 20% range, just to give you your match, as well as get the funding as well, that was where, and again, those numbers can grow a lot in scale as well, so.
Yeah, Ryan, it would probably make sense for us to try and collaborate a little bit, because like City of Rochester, their ADA transition plan for right of way, it's, places like that through Genesee Transportation Council, which we're involved in, they do receive these grant allotments and matching, if I'm not mistaken, that may be a Safe Streets for All type of grant. So, we appreciate the opportunity to, collaborate on that.
Absolutely. I mean, I think that's a great approach for the city. Anytime you can save some money or utilize it in other ways, so.
Okay, any questions from, our guests, visitors?
Our only guest online is Linda.
Linda, you do a great job.
We tell her that every meeting.
Well, it's, you know, she does do a great job. Okay, that's all I have. Anybody else?
Thank you.
We
Thank
get
you,
a copy of that, presentation?
Of
Absolutely.
course.
Yeah, cool. Okay, motion to adjourn. Second. Thank you, guys. We really appreciate that.
Thanks, guys.
Nice meeting you.
Likewise. Where you guys heading from here?
Actually heading more south.
Kingston, very much.
Here, I'll leave this to you. This is the contract.
Great.
Here, I'll use that card. They always give me a hard time. I don't remember bringing it to